In the last video, we connected the city with the harbor by adding these two buildings in this third spur track. In this video, I'm starting on a factory that will fill this section of the city. It's quite a large empty space. First, I want to build a larger building that extends over the edge with the spur tracks going beneath it. I envisioned the kind of industry to be some sort of plastics factory. It allows for different kinds of rail access, from tank cars to bringing chemicals and covered hoppers that carry out plastic pellets. From an aesthetic perspective, I want to make sure the building's faces stick out at different lengths from one another. We can see this better by looking at a map I made of my city. But I'm trying to add some depth and detail to what otherwise is basically warehouses beside each other. Without the depth, it starts looking like a wall, and I'm trying to avoid that. So this is just trying to design some depth to the scene, especially viewing from the harbor. There will be a couple more structures down the line, but it'll end with, I think, a canal that will empty into the harbor. Because of the raised section, I think I'll have to build in some locks. So that'll be an interesting thing to build. In addition, from the viewpoint of someone standing in the alleyway, I want to give an amphitheater-like feeling, where you are surrounded by buildings on all sides. So let's get started. I've already placed the tracks that will run under the factory, and I'll talk about them in a bit. The tracks under the factory don't get light, so they don't have any greenery. I've also reduced the green rounded tiles and plates on the adjacent tracks laid down previously to make the transition a bit more gradual. The support columns holding up the overhanging portion of the factory are made with these triangular girder pieces. Between the columns, I've used these rectangular girder pieces to look like additional support spans. The lower level beneath the factory has a dock to unload cargo. Beside the dock, there is a switch that curves off into a tunnel and disappears into the darkness. I got the idea from a comment by Yellow LXF. I think it looks pretty cool, and I got lucky that I can just barely fit the 50-foot boxcars into this tunnel. I don't know where I'll go yet. Could be an access line from a subway or a freight tunnel leading to some cool underground spur. On the other side of the switch, the wall and roof here are placeholders. While there will be a building on top of here, I'm not yet sure what it will look like. Above the siding, but beneath the actual factory, I added a bunch of vents and pipes of different sizes all twisted together. These huge pipes give a strange, unsettling feeling and fills the area behind the spans with some cool industrial detail. The tunnel is made up of 2x1 gray bricks with a slight curve, using the same technique I used for the curved wall on the pier in the docklands. I put a row of red and white striped tiles and danger signs at the entry point. The tunnel has an alternating set of yellow and white lights. They switch sides a bit further down into the tunnel, so the lights would still be visible from outside the tunnel looking in. I really like how this lower level turned out so far. For the actual factory, I wanted to continue with the brick and concrete style architecture. I'm using mostly salmon 1x1 and 2x2 bricks with mason bricks mixed in. The uniform salmon color is broken up by mixing in brown color bricks as highlights. I've completed the first part of the building so far. It's a 2-story factory with the middle section carved out for the storage tanks and piping. I did this because I didn't want a boring rectangular structure. I haven't completed the back side of the factory and the courtyard yet. They'll be coming up next. The wall on this side of the building is temporary. I continued the grid pattern here for now, but some of it will be obscured by the next building. Looking at the building from the harbor, this side has some vents to break up the grid pattern. I'm a huge fan of these kind of air vents that stick out from the wall and snake their way around the sides of the warehouse and factories. This one is all rusty and dilapidated. The corner of the building has an interesting employee room. I imagine the factory is stifling hot, with the only relief for the workers being this small corner room where they can escape for a brief moment to grab some food, take a nap, and breathe in a bit of fresh air. I've seen images of factories in the Middle East and Asia where the window sections are deliberately removed to allow for ventilation and fresh air. These places don't get any winter, so it's a bit unrealistic in my more North American style industry, but I'm okay with that. It's something interesting I wanted to add to my city. I want this factory to give a bit of a urban hellscape feeling. Even then, the room isn't exclusively theirs, as there are storage tanks there, and the room is also used as an exit point for various exhaust pipes from within the depths of the factory. adding to the cramped feeling of their already small room. Outside, the staff have transformed the wrought iron fire escape ladders and ledges into makeshift balconies, anywhere they can catch a cool breeze and unwind, but the boss is always watching. This is partially inspired by my days back in university. Some houses near the campus actually had fire escapes where people would set up barbecues on them, exactly like this. Overall, I really enjoyed this little corner of my layout. It's the first interior space I created in the series, and I really enjoyed adding all the intricate details. To me, the room tells the story of the workers and their working conditions, how they make use of every inch of available space for rest. While it may not be entirely realistic from a model building perspective, I feel it captures the Lego aesthetic and adds personality and depth to my city. I want the city to have more than just lifeless buildings. It should tell a story and feel alive. Back to the storage tanks and pipes. Plastic factories are usually associated with storage tanks and a huge maze of piping, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to add one to my layout. I wanted to incorporate a network of tanks and pipes into the building, but I had to experiment with the layout to find the right spot. I didn't want to just stick it in the courtyard, as I wanted it to be more integrated with the building itself. Since I already decided to carve out a gap in the middle of the building, I decided to make it large enough to house the tanks and pipes, and it all came together nicely. The largest storage tanks are made of these large cylinder quarter pieces on the corners with two stud columns in between them. The top tank is capped off by rounded corner tiles with a 10 by 10 inverted dish piece. The smaller storage tanks use the same large quarter pieces, but it has no middle spacer. The top of the tank is capped off with 4 round corner bricks. I played around with the configuration of the tanks before settling with 2 smaller tanks at the front, 2 of the large tanks in the middle, and 3 smaller tanks tucked in the back. I purposely left the space here in the middle so a path of piping can travel down the floor into the shadows to the other side, where there is a little machinery room and the pipes bend over the edge of the roof and down to the side, to the section that's still work in progress. I like the look of this lattice structure here, which supports various piping, some loading machinery, and an access ladder. From the highest point, it can distribute various chemicals to the different storage tanks. I got the idea of connecting the pipes to the loading elevator from Bevan's bricks. It's connected using an octagon modified plate and allows pipes to extend off a center point at various angles. On the side, there is a structure with a corrugated metal exterior supported by steel beams. I wanted a utilitarian look to invoke a sense of practicality. No windows or unnecessary decorations. It overhangs the courtyard and will provide a loading area for both trucks and another rail siding. This structure extends over the factory building and turns into a sort of third floor. And that's it for now. In the next episode, I want to continue and finish off the backside of the factory and the courtyard. There will be a rail siding that will travel under the corrugated metal structure, and I'm thinking of what should be in the rest of the courtyard. Stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching.